Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Eck. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. So what that means, I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. Little brief background on me. I work in private practice. I've been in private practice for several years now. I'm currently practicing in Downers Grove, Illinois. I also have done work for an employee assistance program. I do personal professional development training on a myriad of topics for them. I've traveled all around the world for them. I've provided services, both critical incident services, personal professional development training, counseling services, EAP services. I've also all throughout Middle East and Africa, as well as here in the U.S., and do webinars for folks all over the world. I also have spent time at Suicide Prevention Services of America in Batavia, Illinois, where I interned and later worked for some time. So I have quite a background in crisis intervention and prevention as well. So that's just a brief history about me. What brings me here today? Why am I doing this video? Ultimately, I've been just kind of reading a lot of research lately about the increase in mental health concerns and issues around the United States, as well as the lack of folks that are seeking services. And as a mental health counselor, part of our job, part of our kind of the code of ethics, if you will, that we do is to advocate for folks to get the help that they need or seek the help that they need. And there are an infinite number of reasons why individuals don't seek the help that they need. It could be lack of education, lack of understanding of how mental health professionals could be helpful. Could also be just as simple as not having any service providers in your area that can assist or help. Whatever the case may be, my hope with these videos is just simply to provide some assistance, at least in hopefully alleviating some of the symptomology that folks might face in their day-to-day lives, some of the things that might impede them. So I'm going to have a continual series of these. I'm going to try to put up about 2 of them a week, if not more so. But we're going to touch on all kinds of different topics, everything from anxiety to depression. We're going to talk about, suicide in suicide prevention and/or intervention. We'll talk about things from stress management to relationships and parenting issues, as well as coaching and leadership and all kinds of stuff. So we're gonna hit the gamut as we do these videos. My hope again is just that ultimately to provide some education, some information, to let people know that some of the things they face and some of the things they struggle with are things that are treatable. And so hopefully these videos will inspire folks to reach out and seek the help that they need and seek the help that they deserve. Today we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety. That's going to be our focus today. And we'll have multiple ones on anxiety. It's a struggle. I mean, one video is certainly not going to fix or solve any issues that people struggle with anxiety, but hopefully we'll begin to provide a little bit of assistance or help. Little background, approximately 40 million Americans each year are diagnosed, 18 years and older, are diagnosed with some type of anxiety disorder. It is the most common disorder diagnosed in the United States right now. Of that 40 million, only 36.9% of individuals are receiving treatment, any type of treatment. That's not just adequate treatment, that we're talking receiving treatment. Some research indicates that it's only about 15 to 20% of those individuals are receiving adequate treatment. So that's why, in part, I want to do this. I want to provide individuals with an opportunity, maybe who don't have access or just simply don't understand how mental health can be helpful. Hopefully this will inspire you to reach out to your employee assistance program, through your insurance provider, through private pay. There are community mental health centers. There are all kinds of different ways to access mental health in the area that you're in. So I hope these are of help for you. Please provide feedback, topics that maybe you'd like for me to touch on. There are very few areas that I'm not comfortable talking about, and if there were, I'll do the research and make sure that I'm comfortable talking about them and providing adequate and relevant information to you folks. So please let me know what topics you'd like for me to talk about. Eventually I'll put together some webinars, and we'll do some webinars as well, some live interactive webinars where we'll get a little bit more in depth on certain topics and how we can how we can really employ some strategies to begin to feel a little bit more in control of our lives. All right, so enough with the intro as to why we're here. Let's get into anxiety. When we think about anxiety and some of the struggles that come with it, and I'm going to talk even not just about anxiety, but if you maybe you don't struggle with anxiety on a day-to-day basis, but every once in a while or every now and then you really tend to struggle with thinking that just tends to be a little bit more on the negative side of things. It's common for folks to say, I'm a negative person or I'm a positive person. You're not negative, nor are you positive. The reality is that would be a label. You are not simply negative. You are you. You have a name, you have a history, you have a background, you have interests, you have all kinds of different roles that you serve in your life, and negative is not one of them. The reality is you feel like you are a negative person because you tend to subscribe to more negative lines of thinking. When you tend to subscribe to more negative lines of thinking, some of the things that we can do, or one of the main things that I often work with folks on, is acknowledging those negative thoughts. People will say, well, if I want to think more positive, shouldn't I just wake up and think more positive thoughts? You can do that. That actually can be an effective strategy as well. The reality is, though, is that when push comes to shove, we're going to subscribe back to that negative line of thinking, or we're going to gravitate rather back towards that negative line of thinking. And so to me, I think one of the things that's really important, if we're going to begin to intervene on our thinking and choose to think a little bit more positively, that it's important for us to acknowledge those negative thoughts. They came from somewhere. You didn't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to tend to be more negative in my thinking. No, the reality is that life circumstances, life events have kind of dictated to you or hardwired you in a certain way to subscribe to more negative lines of thinking. So we can intervene on that and begin to gradually move ourselves. If we think of negative thinking and positive thinking on a spectrum, we want to gravitate more towards that positive line of thinking. But it takes effort. It takes practice. As I said, you didn't get here overnight. You're not going to fix it overnight either. So what do? We acknowledge the thought and then we validate it. So if I have the thought, maybe I have a presentation tomorrow that I have to do at work for a group of my peers. And maybe I start to worry that, are they going to think that they're going to think that I don't know what I'm talking about, or they're going to be afraid that or I'm afraid that I'm going to mess up, or I'm going to stumble over my words, or I'm going to lose my train of thought while I'm in there, and I'm going to clam up. Whatever the case is, we have these kind of anxious thoughts, and these happened the night before. And so what do we tell ourselves? Like, no, I just need to get a good night's sleep. I'll wake up tomorrow. I'll give myself a pep talk and I'll do great. It doesn't always work that way. And the reality is that moments before I go on, that anxiety begins to overwhelm me. So what do? We acknowledge I feel unprepared. What's the feeling that is associated with this thought? So I'm going to acknowledge the thought and then associate it with the feeling. So maybe the thought of I'm going to mess up, I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to be, they're going to think that I don't know what I'm talking about. Whatever the case is, I acknowledge that thought. I say, it makes sense that I think this way. It makes sense that I think they're going to, think I don't know what I'm talking about. The reason I think that is because I don't really feel very well prepared. But the reality is I have prepared. I've been preparing for this for many, many weeks, or I've been preparing for this for many days, or I've put together a really good presentation. And so what I'm doing is I'm acknowledging that negative thought and where it comes from. Right? In anxiety, the thought dominates, the emotion is what overwhelms. Well, when I am able to connect and pair the two, I can quell them both or quiet them both a little bit at the same time by acknowledging and validating this, as opposed to, you're crazy, don't think this way. And right, we get into this arguing with ourselves, and now we have these two competing thoughts. And these two competing thoughts now, which one is going to win out? Well, the one that we tend to think of more frequently, or the one that we subscribe to more often. So this is the importance of really beginning to acknowledge that thought and pair it connect that emotion to it. And now I can begin to intervene on it. The intervention strategy that I've employed here is a little bit of reality testing. It's a cognitive behavioral term, which we'll do a whole video on reality testing. But the reality testing is, oh, no, wait, I'm going to look at the facts. The facts are this. I have prepared quite well. I've been working on this for some time now. So when I acknowledge those facts and I recognize those, what often it does is it walks me down. If I don't do this, we all know what happens, right? If I don't intervene on that thinking, that thought of I'm unprepared turns to I'm incompetent. It turns to I'm going to get fired if I do a bad job. It turns to whatever. This anxiety, this thought continues to cycle and cycle and cycle because one thought leads to another all the while. Because I'm trying to ignore it, the emotion begins to drive the thought. So again, in summary, we're gonna look at the thought, we're gonna acknowledge it. We're gonna pair it and understand what the emotion is. We're using the emotion to validate the thinking. It makes sense that I feel this way, very validating statement, because I feel X, because I feel nervous, because I feel shy, because I feel low self-confidence, because whatever it is, that's the reason. And no matter that reason, no matter that feeling, the reality is whatever it may be. So we use that reality testing as a way to move ourselves to a little bit more positive line of thinking. Folks, I hope that this video has been helpful for you out there. As I said, we're going to continue to do more and more of these videos. I'm going to try to keep it to simply one therapeutic technique per video. Maybe when I do some stress management, we'll look at some other ideas or options. So be on the lookout. I'll be posting these. I'm going to try to do them on Mondays and Fridays. And as we get rolling with these, I'll begin to develop some webinars that we can do on Wednesday nights or something like that, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, because I know folks are pretty busy. Once we get our kids to bed and stuff like that, we have a little bit of free time. So who doesn't want to see me and listen to me at that time, right? In all honesty, though, I hope this has been helpful for you. Leave me comments about what you'd like to see moving forward. And again, if you struggle with anxiety or any mental health concerns, there is help that is available to you in a myriad of ways and through a myriad of different, many number of avenues that you can seek that help. If you'd like to contact me, you have questions about this technique or about this video, you can reach me at mindspatherapy@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you guys later this week. Have a great week.